Hello, myself Sunil R Nair, and here we are basically talking about the uh, topic that is earthquakes. So, earthquake basically connects like the previous video also basically how basically the earthquake basically comes according to the story basically. One person actually told that earthquake basically can come uh, according to the conflict. Conflict basically he told that conflict means you can say the clashing between two castes. That is possible. Then he told that basically uh, in energy level this first happens or in physical level basically this happens. Then one person basically was an energy master. He actually told that uh, he has basically given one example. 5 crore basically is one caste basically which is created by one of the computer company, one of the software company, and another basically also 5 crore basically human clone was created by one of the software company. Now here actually what happened, uh, both basically are in the one energy area only basically, as in that both are basically in India. Both basically energies are in India basically. So first basically clash and the conflict basically will happen in the environment. But few people say that nowadays basically the password system is created, right? If anybody energy is basically going to interact with each other, then password system is created basically. But that is basically for high profile energies basically. For example, one big businessman energy basically is in the environment. So that basically is user password basically. Means if you want to access that data basically, then it require the authentication, and that if anybody enters also basically, just see basically energy basically that is there is user ID password. If anybody enters that energy level, if by chance basically got some user ID, so that is basically logged also, that this particular data has been user entered into this particular energy area. So like this basically first conflict basically happens in the environment, and then basically the according to the whatever conflict which has basically happened between the blood groups basically of the two blood groups, that blood groups physically is going to happen in the environment, in the city basically. For example, there are two castes. One caste count is 5 crore and another caste count is also 5 crore. In environment basically 5 crore data, both data are basically there. Data basically in environment basically got conflict due to some reason. That reason basically which kinds of reasons are there, that was also basically we are going to discuss. So assume that this is certain level reasons basically was there. Due to that reason basically conflict happened and something basically happened. That basically converts in that assume that basically in environment basically we have given that fight basically has happened. Now basically what will happen? The environment basically which was handling the entire data, that data was basically collected by the power companies and the energy company. They basically don't know that conflict basically has happened, because they do the process and then basically they are not going, they basically can't check each and every data basically, because it's very difficult. So they literally basically send the data to the power company, and power company literally send the data to each and every house. So where the conflict basically was happened between the particular group energy or basically the particular blood group energy, there basically literally the fight has happened. So first conflict happened in the environment, and then basically the real fight happened in the physical fight basically happened between two castes basically. So everything basically first happens in the environment basically. If that is not tracked by the energy and the power company, then basically that creates lots of problem basically. If this energy is of particular big businessman, then basically it is checked 100 times, because it's connected with the entire country. He is going whatever decision basically he is going to take, that is 100% going to affect to the entire country. So that's why basically his each and every energy basically are checked, and then only basically the data is sent to the particular areas, and basically power company basically again back do the process and send the data to him only. So like this basically the rich people basically energies are basically checked 100 times, checked 100 times. So you can just imagine basically the 100 times the basically data are basically checked of the rich people, not the poor. The poor people basically don't have money basically. They don't have anything basically. Then how? Why basically they are going to do seva? Nobody does seva basically nowadays. So literally basically nowadays the energy companies are basically just charging the money, and according to that basically they are doing each and every things basically. So like this basically rich people data, each and every data are checked, and that 5 crore conflict which has happened in the environment, this can be particular single person, and it can be a particular group also basically. So this literally basically uh, the fight has happened. So this actually what says? It's the artificial intelligence software. Some like Infosys basically group has created this name as an artificial intelligence project. So they basically know that this data has conflict. If they are basically they are into the artificial intelligence, that means they know that this energy is going to generate, going to come into this particular human's body, and it's going to convert the fight. So each and every things basically which is going to happen between the human to human, that data basically the artificial intelligence software department basically, that is the they are basically directly connected with the energy department. They have the data basically. So each and every basically things basically have logic. So this is basically logic behind artificial intelligence software. So like this the conflict basically happen, and then basically the fight also basically really basically the fight has happened. So this actually says that the first attraction basically happens in the environment, and then basically that attraction basically is sent to the power company, and then basically they checks basically if the data is basically very critical or not. If the data is not so critical basically, then basically they, because it might possible that big fight basically can happen between caste to caste. So that will be big, that will be critical data. So that data basically they checks, but they send or they not send, that basically is the question basically. Because in environment basically some satellite group has basically might have done this basically. If they don't send basically, then mostly basically it's possible that satellite might react basically, because satellite basically is not human basically, but they can do the sense basically the conflict has happened or not happened. So it might possible that some due to some reason basically the conflict might happen. Either you solve that conflict basically in the environment only, again do the reprocess, and then basically send the data to the power company, and then to the human basically. If that basically is possible, then basically it might be okay, because this comes to the repetition of the data basically, that comes to the modification of the data which has already processed basically. But few big businessmen basically they can afford the data basically, this type of modification data, because they have the good level of money basically. If they have good level of money basically, then they can do the process of the energy level. So this all things basically just now which I told, that is basically given one name, that is the artificial intelligence project. So here the main thing is basically, here the main thing is basically each and every city basically is data are basically processing in the environment. That data is going to back to the power company. Then power company is going to send the data back to the each and every house according to the environment which was basically generated. And here the main thing is the death basically which basically comes to the human body, that also generates here basically. That is the main thing basically. So artificial intelligence basically has not reached up to that level that they can basically track the death also basically of the human basically. That is mostly basically impossible, because artificial intelligence, if that basically they have tracked, then basically it might be of human souls basically, but real human basically death basically tracking is basically not possible basically, because it's connected with the satellites and human don't have any authority to touch the satellites from the Earth planet. Satellite groups can touch the data, but human group basically staying in the Earth planet basically they can't touch the data, because authentication is not given by the satellite groups. So that's why basically the conflict basically happens in the environment first, and then basically into the human body. So this can be stopped basically, but it requires lots of efforts and lots of money basically is required. The money basically who can afford the money basically, then basically it's okay. Or basically the group basically like prime minister, presidents, chief minister, their decision also basically matters. If they gets disease, then basically that also basically gets matter. So here the basically disease can be stopped, and mostly basically this literally the system basically has implemented also basically long before, because when the artificial intelligence project came, that time basically this it has came into the market. That means the thing basically which I told just now, that is basically tested by the certain level of groups, then only basically they introduce the artificial intelligence software basically. If any software is coming in the market, that means the each and everything is tested and then only basically the tested. If any error occurs in the artificial intelligence software, then basically you have to stop that software. So that's why basically each and every is tested and then basically it comes into the market. So just see basically up to what level the things has been reached. First the energy gets processed and then basically the things. And one person basically asked the question basically, if world is basically assume that the world is going to end. So like this same way the energy is going to process. He told that energy is going to process, but not here basically. It is going to process to the universe, where the Earth planet is one small tiny energy basically. There it basically get processed with the other planets basically, and that is the most dangerous area of the universe basically. There basically whatever things basically get processed, that 100% going to affect to the Earth planet one day. If the process is happen like that, that the Earth planet is going to end, in that energies basically the processes happen like that, the Earth planet will completely get washed out. Then 100% that is going to happen in the Earth planet, because you can't track that basically, because there is no system basically created for that area basically, because it's a very sensitive area and it's basically universal area basically. And if basically by chance this has been tracked, then basically the system also basically might have created that, if the this type of data comes basically. For example, I had told one thing basically, the 5 crore people basically has created for specific task basically, that is the task that is the Earth planet is going to move that side, and in that side basically this type of energy is required basically. So here basically if energy is required, then basically it's tested by the medical department also. Medical is that is basically doctors and the healthcare departments, they basically by default checks each and everything, and then only and they do the I have taken one example, the 1500 process basically they do, and then only basically they send the data to the that area basically when the time comes. So that basically is the time basically, for that the each and every caste in this world basically is created. So each and every caste basically is created on the level of certain level of task they are going to do in future in the universe, with the help of their body's energy. For that basically the World Bank invest the money in the basically the each and every country, and they give the name as this caste is going to do. In description basically they write that this particular caste is going to create one energy in the earth planet environment, and that energy and they are going to do 1500 types of process also. After that process, basically the data is going to be kept in the going to be captured by the satellite groups, and then basically the earth planet is going to use this data, sorry, the universe group is going to use this data. So this is also basically one of the process basically, and the one of the attraction that this person generation is going to be start or not going to start. So in next part basically we are going to show a little bit more about this whole topic on the mixed topic basically.